In a quiet, tucked-away burrow at the edge of Willowbrook Forest, a little white rabbit named Lumi adjusted the straps of her carrot-shaped backpack and twitched her soft ears with excitement. Today was a special day. The first frost of winter had arrived overnight, painting the trees with shimmering frost and dusting the ground with a silvery sparkle. Lumi's tiny pink nose wriggled as she breathed in the cool, crisp air. The scent of fresh bread from the nearby bustling city drifted through the trees, mingling with the comforting smell of pine. Tucked safely inside her little backpack was a small pouch of golden coins wrapped in a handkerchief with embroidered flowers, her grandmother's gift to her. Lumi's heart swelled with warmth as she thought of her dear grandmama Hazel, who had spent many seasons knitting scarves for others, but had never owned a truly special one for herself. "That will change today," Lumi whispered to herself with determination. She had saved up every little coin from her chores, helping her mother with the vegetable garden, delivering letters to neighbours, and even sweeping the path leading up to the Willowbrook market. And now the day had finally come. Lumi was going to the city for the very first time, and she would find the softest, warmest, most beautiful scarf for her grandmama Hazel, one that would wrap her up like a hug on chilly nights. With a hop, a skip, and a determined wiggle of her nose, Lumi stepped onto the cobblestone path leading toward Willow Hollow, the lively city where merchants and crafters from all over gathered to sell their finest goods. The city awakens. As Lumi approached the entrance to Willow Hollow, the world around her shifted from the peaceful whispers of the forest to the hum of a waking city. The morning sun peeked over the rooftops, casting golden light over bustling market stalls, twinkling lanterns, and colourful shop signs swaying gently in the winter breeze. From the bakery, the scent of fresh honey buns and cinnamon rolls made Lumi's tummy give a hopeful little grumble. A jolly owl baker, wearing a flour-dusted apron, placed a fresh tray of cranberry scones on the windowsill to cool, while a family of hedgehogs eagerly waited for their breakfast order. A little further ahead, Lumi's large ears perked up as she passed a music shop, where a pair of songbirds tuned tiny violins. Their gentle hum added to the city's morning melody, a song of new beginnings. The scarf shop she was searching for was just ahead, tucked between a bookstore and a lantern shop. Its large glass window displayed the coziest scarves Lumi had ever seen, woven in rich blues, snowy whites and warm reds, each one with intricate designs of leaves, stars, and even little acorns. Her heart fluttered. This was it. Lumi hopped closer, feeling the weight of her little coin pouch inside her backpack. But just as she reached for the door handle, something small and round rolled across her path. She blinked and took a step back. A tiny button, no bigger than a blueberry, lay glistening on the cobblestone street. It was made of shimmering pearl, catching the morning sunlight like a fallen star. Lumi glanced around. Had someone dropped it? She looked left and right, but the street was busy. Foxes in scarves hurried to work, squirrels carried baskets of nuts, and a group of young mice ran past, giggling and holding hands. No one seemed to notice the tiny button, alone and forgotten. Lumi bent down and gently picked it up, rolling it between her soft paws. It was delicate, yet sturdy, the kind of button that might belong to a very special coat or a very important garment. Her nose twitched thoughtfully. "I can't just leave it here," she murmured. "I have to return it to its owner." A mission within a mission. How exciting. Lumi carefully tucked the little button into her pocket and took one last glance at the scarf shop. She would be back soon. But for now, the tiny lost button had a story to tell, and she was determined to follow wherever it led. Little did she know, this tiny thing would take her on an adventure she would never forget. Lumi gently patted the tiny button in her pocket, ensuring it was still there as she stepped away from the scarf shop. Her heart fluttered with excitement. She had come to the city with one mission, to buy a beautiful scarf for her grandmama Hazel. But now she had an unexpected new mission, returning the lost button to its rightful owner. As Lumi looked around at the bustling streets of Willow Hollow, she realized she had no idea where to start. Who had lost the button? She glanced at the scarf shop, wondering if it had rolled out from there. But before she could step inside, a sudden gust of wind whirled past her, carrying the scent of fresh-baked pastries and rustling the scarves in the shop window. And just like that, the tiny button slipped from her pocket and rolled away. Lumi gasped. Oh no! The button tumbled along the cobblestone street, bouncing between small cracks and dancing over tiny puddles left behind by the morning frost. Without thinking, Lumi leaped forward, her little paws pattering quickly on the ground as she gave chase. Chasing the button. The tiny button zigzagged through the busy street, slipping between the feet of passers-by. Lumi dodged around a group of young foxes, weaved past a duck wearing a top hat, and narrowly avoided bumping into a hedgehog balancing a tower of teacups on his back. The button bounced faster and faster, rolling toward an alleyway. Lumi's ears twitched. She had to catch it before it disappeared. With a final determined hop, Lumi pounced forward and caught the button in her paws just as it reached the mouth of the alley. "Got you," she whispered, tucking it safely into her backpack this time. She let out a soft sigh of relief and glanced around. The street behind her was still filled with bustling shoppers and cheerful market stalls, but the alley ahead of her was different. It was quiet. Narrow and winding, the alley was lined with tiny wooden doors and twisting ivy-covered walls. A single lantern flickered above, casting a warm glow on the cobblestone path. And then, a voice. Well, what do we have here?" Lumi's ears perked up. From the shadows, a pair of bright eyes peeked out, followed by the tiniest little figure she had ever seen. A mouse, no bigger than her paw, stepped into the lantern's glow. He wore a blue waistcoat, round glasses, and had a tiny measuring tape draped over his shoulders. "A visitor!" he squeaked, adjusting his glasses. "Not many big folk come down this alley." Lumi blinked. Big folk, she supposed, compared to the little mouse. She was much bigger. She gave a small polite bow. "I'm Lumi. I didn't mean to wander in. I was chasing this." She held up the button. The mouse's eyes widened. "Oh, my whiskers! Where did you find that?" Lumi tilted her head. "Do you know who it belongs to?" The mouse nodded eagerly. "Follow me." And just like that, Lumi's adventure took a new turn. The sewing mice's workshop. Lumi followed the little mouse through the twisting alleyway, which led her to a tiny wooden door with a painted sign that read, "Needle and Thread Tailoring." The mouse pushed open the door, and Lumi ducked inside, stepping into a magical little workshop. The air smelled of lavender and fresh linen, and tiny golden fairy lights twinkled across the shelves. Inside, dozens of tiny mice were busy at work. Some were stitching tiny coats on miniature sewing machines, others were measuring fabric with their tails, and a few were even carrying spools of thread, twice their size. Lumi's eyes widened with wonder. The little mouse cleared his throat. "Everyone, we have a guest!" The workshop fell silent, and all eyes turned to Lumi. A small, elderly mouse stepped forward, adjusting her tiny glasses and dusting off her apron. "Oh my," she said, her voice warm. "You've brought something special." Lumi carefully held up the button. "I found this outside the scarf shop. I wanted to return it." The elderly mouse's whiskers twitched. "You are very kind, dear. This button belongs to the mayor's coat." Lumi's ears perked up. "The mayor?" The mouse nodded. "Mayor Theodore, the great brown bear. He wears a very fine coat, but one of his buttons went missing this morning." Lumi gasped. "Then I must return it at once." The elderly mouse smiled. "You have a kind heart, little rabbit, but the mayor is far across the city, and a storm is coming." Lumi glanced toward the window. Dark clouds were beginning to gather above the rooftops, and a cold wind rattled the tiny workshop shutters. She shivered slightly. The elderly mouse gently placed a tiny paw on her own. "Stay here for a moment, dear. I believe fate has brought you to us for a reason." Lumi tilted her head. "What do you mean?" The elderly mouse clapped her paws, and the other mice scurried into action. They gathered spools of thread, fabric scraps, and a pair of golden needles. Then, with delicate, careful paws, they began to sew something beautiful. Lumi watched in amazement. A warm, soft fabric took shape before her eyes. A scarf. Not just any scarf, but one woven with care and kindness. The elderly mouse smiled as she tied off the last stitch and held it out to Lumi. "For your grandmama Hazel!" Lumi's eyes widened. How did you know?" The mouse chuckled. "Because sometimes tiny things lead us to the biggest discoveries." Lumi held the scarf close. It was perfect, soft as a cloud and stitched with golden thread that shimmered like stars. And just like that, Lumi realized something. The button had led her here, to kindness, to warmth, to something she hadn't even known she was searching for. Her heart swelled with gratitude. She had a scarf for Grandmama Hazel. Now, there was just one more thing to do. She would brave the storm and return the mayor's missing button. Little did she know, her journey was far from over. The soft golden scarf lay folded neatly in Lumi's paws, glowing gently under the warm lantern lights of the sewing mice's workshop. She ran her paw over the delicate stitches, feeling the warmth woven into every thread. It was perfect. Her heart swelled at the thought of Grandmama Hazel, wrapped in its comforting softness, sipping warm tea by the fireplace. But a small pang of uncertainty stirred in her chest. There was still one task left to do, returning the tiny lost button to Mayor Theodore. Lumi glanced out the window. The storm had arrived. Heavy raindrops drummed against the rooftops, and the wind howled down the alleyways, carrying the scent of damp earth and wet stone. Puddles pooled between the cobblestones, shimmering under the lantern glow. The journey to City Hall, where Mayor Theodore worked, was across the entire city. A flicker of doubt crept into Lumi's mind. Could she really make it through the storm? She tightened her grip on the button inside her backpack. She had come this far. She couldn't turn back now. A moment of comfort. The elderly mouse who had gifted her the scarf stepped closer and patted Lumi's paw. "You're thinking about the journey ahead, aren't you, dear?" she asked gently. Lumi nodded. "It's just... the storm is so strong. What if I lose the button? What if I can't make it?" The elderly mouse smiled softly and reached into a tiny wooden chest on the sewing table. From within, she pulled out a small silver thimble, its surface worn with age, and pressed it into Lumi's paw. "This belonged to my mother," she said, her voice warm. She always told me that even the tiniest things have great purpose. Just like a thimble protects a tailor's paw, courage protects a traveler's heart. Lumi curled her paw around the thimble, feeling the cool metal against her fur. Courage, that's what she needed. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders and smiled up at the elderly mouse. I won't give up, she said. I'll return this button no matter what. The elderly mouse beamed. That's the spirit, dear. And remember, you're never truly alone. The world has a way of guiding those with kind hearts. Stepping into the storm. Lumi tightened the straps of her carrot backpack, ensuring both the button and the scarf were safe inside. With one last look at the cozy sewing workshop, she stepped out into the storm. The moment she did, rain pelted against her fur, soaking her ears and making the cobblestones slick beneath her feet. The streets of Willow Hollow, once so bustling and cheerful, were now quiet and empty, save for the occasional lantern swaying in the wind and the distant roll of thunder. She hunched against the wind, her small paws making tiny splashes as she hurried forward. Just a little farther, she whispered to herself. As Lumi pressed on, she noticed something strange. The button in her backpack was glowing. A faint, golden shimmer peeked through the fabric of her bag, like a tiny firefly trapped inside. She gasped. Why is it glowing? Before she could think further, the wind picked up again, nearly knocking her off balance. The button's glow pulsed slightly, as if reassuring her to keep going. Taking it as a sign, Lumi pushed forward, a helping paw in the storm. As she turned a corner, she heard a tiny cry. Lumi's ears perked up. Somewhere hidden within the storm, someone was calling for help. She followed the sound, weaving through the streets until she reached a tiny, overturned cart, its wheels still spinning, and trapped beneath it was a small, shivering sparrow. His wings were tucked tightly against his body, his feathers drenched from the rain. "Oh dear!" Lumi gasped, rushing to his side. She set down her backpack and tried to lift the cart, but it was too heavy for her small paws alone. The sparrow looked up at her with grateful but worried eyes. "I was delivering a package, but the wind knocked me down," he chirped. "I can't move my wing." Lumi thought fast. She needed to help, but the storm was getting worse by the second. And then she remembered the sewing mice. "Wait right here," she told the sparrow. "I'll get help." She raced back through the rain, retracing her steps to the tiny alleyway. When she reached the sewing shop, the elderly mouse opened the door at once. "I had a feeling you'd be back, dear," she said with a knowing smile. Lumi explained everything quickly, the sparrow, the overturned cart, and how they needed help right away. Without hesitation, the mice gathered together, bringing tiny wooden tools, fabric strips, and twine. Together they hurried through the storm, back to the sparrow. Working as a team, the mice used their tools to lift the cart, while Lumi and the elderly mouse carefully helped the sparrow free his wing. The moment he was safe, the button in Lumi's backpack glowed even brighter. Lumi noticed it immediately. The sparrow noticed too. "That's magic," he chirped softly. "That button, it's special." Lumi looked at the tiny glowing object in her bag. What was this button really? She didn't know yet, but she had a feeling she was about to find out. A warm gesture. Despite the rain, Lumi felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had stopped to help even when she was in a hurry. She had chosen kindness when it would have been easier to walk away. And somehow the button had known. She looked at the sparrow, who tested his wing gently. "Thank you," he said softly. "I wouldn't have made it without you." The elderly mouse patted Lumi's paw. "See, dear? Small things matter." Lumi smiled. The storm was still raging, but now she felt stronger. She had a scarf for Grandmama Hazel. She had a mysterious glowing button that somehow seemed to guide her. And now she had new friends who reminded her that kindness always found its way back. Taking a deep breath, she looked toward the direction of City Hall. She was ready for the final part of her journey. She would return the button to Mayor Theodore. And maybe, just maybe, she'd find out why it was glowing. Arriving at City Hall, Lumi hurried through the rain-soaked streets, her carrot backpack secured tightly against her small frame. The golden button inside was still glowing faintly, a quiet pulse of light that filled her with both curiosity and determination. Through the misty streets, she could finally see City Hall ahead, a grand building with tall stone steps and an enormous wooden door. Her ears twitched. The large brass clock above the entrance struck midnight, its chimes echoing through the empty streets. "I made it!" Lumi gasped. She bounded up the steps and reached for the door handle, only to pause when she noticed something. A small sign hung on the door. City Hall closed for the evening. Lumi's heart sank. "No, I can't stop now. I have to return the button." She banged softly on the door with her paw. No answer. She tried again, this time standing on tiptoe to peer through the small round window above the handle. Inside, the great hall was dimly lit, its golden chandeliers swaying gently in the wind. And there, sitting at a massive wooden desk, was Mayor Theodore, a wise, elderly tortoise, dozing off in his chair. Lumi took a deep breath and knocked one more time, a little louder. The tortoise stirred, his wrinkled eyes fluttered open, and with a slow stretch, he turned toward the door. With great care, he reached for his cane, shuffled to the entrance, and pulled the door open with a creak. "Oh my, who do we have here?" Mayor Theodore blinked down at Lumi. "A traveller braving the storm at this hour?" revealing the button's secret. Lumi stepped forward, adjusting her soggy ears. "Mr. Mayor, I found something important." She fumbled inside her bag and pulled out the glowing button. "I believe this belongs to you." Mayor Theodore's eyes widened. For the first time that evening, he looked fully awake. He reached for the button with trembling hands. The moment his fingers touched it, a gentle golden light spread outward, illuminating the grand hall. Lumi gasped as the glow formed shapes in the air, swirling wisps of light weaving delicate patterns above their heads. Memories. Lumi's eyes widened in awe as she saw tiny glowing images form around them, scenes playing like pages of a storybook brought to life. She saw a young tortoise years ago, stitching a cloak with tiny paws, his heart full of hope and determination. She saw him standing in a crowded tailor shop, learning from master seamstresses, always carrying a single golden button in his pocket. And then the memory shifted. She saw the same tortoise, older, wiser, handing the button to another traveller, whispering, "This is a token of kindness. Pass it on." Lumi stared in awe as the images dissolved into tiny golden specks, drifting like fireflies before fading into the air. The mayor held the button close to his chest. His voice trembled. "I never thought I'd see it again." Lumi's ears perked up. "You know this button?" Mayor Theodore nodded slowly. "This button has been passed from traveller to traveller for generations. It finds its way to those who are kind, those who help others even when the path is difficult. And now, it has found you." Lumi's paws curled around the strap of her backpack. She thought about her journey, about helping the sparrow in the storm, about trusting the sewing mice to lead her to the perfect scarf, about choosing to keep going even when she doubted herself. The button had been guiding her all along. The final gift, Maya. Theodore smiled gently. You have a choice, my dear. He held the glowing button out toward Lumi. You can keep it as a reminder of your kindness. Or you can pass it on to another traveler, someone who might need it even more than you. Lumi hesitated for a moment. The button had been with her through so much. It had led her here, helped her find courage, and even guided her to the perfect gift for Grandmama Hazel. But then, she thought about the little sparrow, the sewing mice, the kindness that had been given to her, expecting nothing in return. Lumi took a deep breath and smiled. She gently closed Mayor Theodore's fingers around the button. I think I'd like it to keep traveling, she said softly, just like it did before. The mayor's eyes twinkled with warmth. A wise choice. As the golden glow faded, the great brass clock struck one final chime. Lumi let out a content sigh. Her journey was complete, and she had everything she needed: a newfound confidence, a story to tell, and most importantly, a golden scarf woven with warmth and love for Grandmama Hazel. The journey home. With the first hints of dawn peeking over the rooftops, Lumi made her way back through the city. The storm had passed. The streets were still and peaceful, glistening with the last traces of rain. As she reached the outskirts of Willow Hollow, she looked up, and there, arched high above the city, was a perfect rainbow stretching across the morning sky. She smiled. Tiny things matter. And sometimes, the smallest journeys lead to the greatest discoveries. A quiet morning in Willow Hollow. The sky had shifted from deep indigo to the softest shades of pink and gold as the first rays of the sun stretched across the horizon. Lumi trotted happily down the winding forest path, the damp earth beneath her paws still cool from the night's rain. Her carrot backpack bounced lightly with each step, and inside, nestled safely between layers of soft fabric, was the golden scarf she had worked so hard to find. The city, with all its lights and excitement, was far behind her now. The scent of warm bread drifted from a distant cottage, mingling with the crisp morning air. Home was close. A feeling of deep contentment settled over Lumi as she followed the familiar little path toward Grandmama Hazel's cozy burrow. The birds in the treetops were just waking up, their cheerful songs filling the air like a gentle lullaby. And there, waiting by the garden gate, was Grandmama Hazel herself, wrapped in her old, faded scarf, smiling as Lumi came into view. "Oh, my dear Lumi," Grandmama Hazel said, opening her arms wide. "You're home." Lumi nuzzled against her grandmother's soft fur, breathing in the warm, familiar scent of lavender and honey. "I found the perfect scarf for you, Grandmama," Lumi said, excitement bubbling in her voice. She gently unzipped her carrot backpack and carefully pulled out the golden scarf. It shimmered softly in the morning light, its delicate threads catching the sun in the most magical way. Grandmama Hazel's eyes widened with delight as she reached out and ran her paws over the fabric. "Oh, Lumi, this is the most beautiful scarf I've ever seen," she whispered, and it's so warm. Lumi helped her wrap it snugly around her neck. The scarf fit perfectly, as if it had been made just for her. Grandmama Hazel chuckled softly and gave Lumi a gentle squeeze. "You must have had quite an adventure to find this." Lumi's ears twitched. She thought about the sparrow in the rain, the sewing mice and their tiny workshop, the magical button that led her to Mayor Theodore, and the choice she made to pass the button on so it could find its next traveler. She smiled softly. I did, and I learned something really important along the way. Grandmama Hazel tilted her head. Oh? And what was that, my dear? Lumi looked up at the golden sunrise, her heart warm and full. That tiny things can make the biggest difference. After breakfast, steaming tea and freshly baked carrot muffins, Lumi curled up by the fireplace, feeling the gentle warmth of the flames on her fur. Grandmama Hazel rocked in her favourite wooden chair, humming a tune as she knitted. The golden scarf glowed softly around her neck. Lumi's eyelids grew heavy. She let out a contented sigh, sinking deeper into the cushions of the cosy armchair. The room was filled with the soft crackling of the fire, the rhythmic tapping of Grandmama's knitting needles, and the peaceful chirping of birds outside. Lumi's paws twitched as she thought about all the friends she'd met on her journey, the kindness of strangers, the magic of small things, the button that had changed everything. Her breathing slowed, her body relaxed. As she drifted towards sleep, she felt safe, warm, and loved, wrapped in the embrace of home, where every tiny moment mattered. The fire crackled softly. The golden scarf shimmered gently, and Lumi fell into a deep, peaceful sleep, drifting into stillness. The fire crackles softly, the golden scarf shimmers gently in the glow. Lumi, wrapped in warmth, has begun to drift into a deep and peaceful sleep, and now it is your turn. Close your eyes, just like Lumi, and allow your body to sink into the soft, warm comfort of your bed. Feel the blankets around you, gentle and safe, like a hug from someone you love. Let's take a deep breath together. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, and breathe out, 3, 2, 1. Once more, breathe in, filling your body with warmth and relaxation, and breathe out, releasing the day, letting it float far, far away. The room around you is quiet and calm. The world outside has slowed. You are safe. You are warm. You're exactly where you are meant to be. Now, imagine a soft, golden light gently surrounding you, just like the cozy glow of Grandmama Hazel's fireplace. This golden light lifts you gently, effortlessly, carrying you up into a sky filled with soft, fluffy clouds. The clouds wrap around you like the coziest blanket, holding you safe, cradling you in peace. Above you, the stars twinkle softly, watching over you. They know your heart, your kindness, and your gentle dreams. The moon smiles down, casting a cool silver glow over the soft night sky. You drift, higher and higher, lighter and lighter. There is nothing to worry about here. Just softness, warmth, and peace. Let your mind float freely, like a leaf on a quiet river, letting go of any thoughts from the day. If a thought comes, thank it for visiting. Then let it drift away like a tiny cloud on the wind. The night is here to hold you. The world is resting. And so are you, the whispering wind. Listen now. Can you hear it? The whispering wind is calling your name, singing soft and sweet like a lullaby. It carries stories from faraway places, stories of rabbits and scarves, of tiny golden buttons and hidden magic. The wind wraps around you, tucking you in with its gentle hush. And just like Lumi, you snuggle deeper into your own soft nest, feeling the weight of the day melt away. The wind whispers once more. Sleep now, little one. The stars are watching. The moon is glowing. The world is safe. And you are loved. Your arms are heavy. Your legs are soft. Your body is warm and safe. The world of dreams is waiting for you now. Maybe tonight, in your dreams, you will visit the city of tiny creatures, where the sewing mice are still stitching and the button fairies are still fluttering about. Or perhaps you will follow Lumi once more on another adventure. across golden hills and sparkling rivers, carrying her carrot backpack and chasing new wonders. Or maybe, just maybe, you will float among the clouds, feeling the soft embrace of stars and moonlight, drifting peacefully, gently, deeply, letting go, drifting down, eyes closing, breath slowing. Sleep is here now, soft and gentle, safe and warm. Good night, little dreamer. The world is resting, and so are you.